you're moving to Australia, the huge thought of where exactly should I move to in Australia would be on your mind. Don't worry, I was just like you. I made so much research. I was like in everybody's business, looking, reading, watching videos, and making my own research, googling, and should I go to a city or should I move to the rural part of Australia? And as some of you already know, I made the choice to move to the city. But did I really make the best choice for myself and my family? I'm gonna let you know in this video, so keep watching. Hey beautiful people, welcome back again to the channel. If you're just seeing my face for the first time, you're welcome. My name is Dayo. I am currently practicing here in Australia as a registered nurse. And if you are a returning subscriber, I wanted to use this opportunity to say a big thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for always engaging my videos, watching my videos. Thank you so much. My goal right now is to get to 30k subscribers. So if you're watching and you're not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Let's get to 30k by April. Okay, so if you are coming to Australia and you're single, what are you doing in the rural part? What? Tell me. Anyway, I'm just kidding, okay? I know you can find love anywhere, but let's be honest, you're most likely going to find love, relationship, husband or wife if you live in the city, because you have more options, you have more people, you are going out, social life bubbling, But if you go to the remote area, you have to be praying, like pray for your God to bring your partner to you, or you have to be on social media, find your partner and grab your partner on social media. But chances of you running into your partner in the remote area, like you just walking and you see one fine boy or you see one fine girl, chances are slim. Okay, so yeah, except you're married, you have a family, of course you will love it there. But if you are single and searching, you have to be careful where you move to. City or rural part? So rural, like the remote, anyone, let's just put it rural. Though outback is a bit different, rural is a bit different, remote is a bit different, like, but I'm just gonna put it rural. Like when I say rural, please just know that it's anything that is not in the city. Let me just use that umbrella, because as much as it's hard to say, there are some parts that are rural, and in some states it can't feel like outback as well. Okay, so but when I say city, I don't mean only Sydney. I mean Melbourne, Adelaide, Hobart, Canberra, Brisbane, Darwin, Perth as well. Okay, so yeah, these are the main cities, right, in Australia. How is life like living here, and how is life like living in the remote or rural parts of Australia? I'm going to start by giving a quick disclaimer that whatever I'm saying here is based on my personal experience and also from a little bit of research I've made, and just like asking people that live in these parts of Australia. As some of you already know, I'm based in Sydney. However, I do also go to the remote rural areas a bit of time, and then I come back to Sydney. Okay, although I do have a little bit of idea on what life is like in the rural part, I would like to say in this video that I'm not living in a remote area as a permanent place of residency. So I would like to put that out here, that my opinion might be biased based on not living there permanently, but it is still my opinion, okay? and it is still valid to me, because to be honest, you don't have to live in a place 100 years to know something. Also, some people might live in a particular place 100 years and there are still some things they don't know. Okay, so I hope that gives us a little bit of idea on what I'm gonna say here. So the first thing I would like to say is cost of living, city and remote. I mean, I think this is general knowledge. Okay, if you live in the cities, you already know that you're gonna be spending as a city girl or a city boy. But if you live in the remote rural area, you're gonna be spending like a local, like it's gonna be cheaper generally. So I'll start with the most expensive thing that we do, which is rent or mortgage. Okay, let me start from rent. So when it comes to renting in the city area, most people like would spend about, for an apartment, like for a 1-bedroom apartment, like 500 to 800, an average Australian dollar per week. Okay, it could be a little bit lesser, it could be a little bit more, okay, but this is a general average. However, if you go to the remote rural area, you can see flats for like, I mean, 300 up to 600 per week. And bear in mind that when it comes to flats, they have more of houses there, I would say, compared to places like Sydney, Brisbane, that have more apartments and all. So that's like the cost of rent. And for nurses, you might be lucky to be having free accommodation. If you ask me, not everybody will like free accommodation because, of course, it's most likely going to be close to the hospital, or it's in the hospital, and it might not be your taste, or you might just not like the vibe of staying in the hospital because you can be called at any time, if you know what I mean. But most of the time, for the first few months, you might be given a free accommodation if you're living in the remote or the rural parts of Australia. Now, also getting a house or a mortgage. If you're going to buy a house like in the cities like Brisbane, Sydney, oh my god, Sydney, you're looking at anywhere from 800 to 1.6 million Australian dollar to buy a house. I mean, also it depends on your taste of house, if it's new build, if it's old build, or if it's 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 5, but that's like an average of how much it costs. However, if you go over to the rural areas, like you might be buying a property like 3, 4, 5-bedroom for like 400 up onto 600. I mean, also, like I said, depends on so many factors. Okay, I can't really tell you exactly how much, but that's just like an average range. Of course, you can get a 1 million house in the village if it's acres of land, okay, if you know what I mean. But that's just like an average how much people spend. So yeah, you might want to consider the cost of living. Are you a huge family? You might benefit to stay in the rural part for cost of living factors. Or if you are single, you might love to stay in the city because you can easily afford the cost of living, if you know what I mean. And I want to start by saying, when it comes to cost of living with how much you earn, as a nurse, I'll be more specific. If you stay in the city and if you stay in the rural part, the pay, your hourly rate is same. Okay, the only difference is when you work for private organizations, your pay might be higher in the city. Okay, I'm sure of my own specialty, my pay is higher if I work in private. Okay, and also you earn more if you work with agencies. Okay, so that's something you have to factor. If you're going to permanent roles in public hospital, know that the pay is similar everywhere. But the good thing about working in remote areas is they have so much bonus for you. Okay, so we have like rural allowance. Like I said, I've done a video where you can earn up to 70,000 just for moving to a rural area. So you have to factor that. Some people 30,000, 15,000. I think the minimum I've seen for remote areas are like 10,000 Australian dollar as a relocation bonus. Okay, but when you come to the city do also give relocation bonuses. It's not as heavy as when you move to the rural area, and sometimes you don't really get it. So that's something you have to consider. So the pay and the cost of living, you have to consider that. When it comes to job opportunities as nurses, 100% trust me, you get a job almost everywhere you go. As long as people are there, you most likely get a job at least 5 kilometers from where you live. But of course, as everybody knows, there are more job opportunities if you live in the city area than if you live in the remote areas. So if you live in Sydney, like 100% you never lack jobs, but that might not be the case if you live in the remote area, because of course, as everybody knows, accessibility of hospitals are not that much. Like in a whole town, there might just be 1 clinic or 2 clinics. How would you get a job if you live there? However, if you want to compare to big cities like Sydney, we have so many hospitals, like plenty. Like even within my house, there's so many hospitals around me. Like I can walk 5 minutes, I'm in one big hospital, not just small, big hospital. I walk on this side, if I take one bus ride, I'm in another big hospital. So like there's plenty of jobs, you never lack jobs. I also like to say that, yeah, if you are in a specialist area and you move to the rural parts, that specialty might not be in that remote area or rural area. But if you are a generalist, like if you're a general nurse, you're an ED nurse, bingo, you always get a job in the remote area, because of course that's where your skills and expertise is needed. But for example, you are a renal nurse or, I mean, I don't mean to bring anybody's specialty down, I'm just telling you the fact. There are some hospitals that I've been to in the remote area that they don't have MRI. They don't have the basics to do some scans or like some dialysis. They have to transport patients to somewhere else, okay, to have those things done, because it's not readily accessible. So for example, you're now a dialysis nurse or a cancer nurse in a hospital that they don't have the cancer facility, or they don't have the dialysis facility, how would you work in that specialty? You most likely have to be redeployed to the ward setting or ED or somewhere else that they might need you. So that's something you should factor in as well if you're moving to the remote areas, because as much as, yeah, there'll always be job, you might not get the exact specialty you want in those areas. So you might have to just be a GP nurse, ED nurse, or any other nurse that's readily available. That's one thing about nursing, is that you can easily switch specialties to fit what is there, because as long as you're a general nurse, you'll be fine. Okay, so that's something you have to consider. Another thing I would like to also state is that when it comes to career progression, it differs. Okay, you can get career progression in any part, I will be honest, like both city or rural, but I would like to say that you more likely get promoted easily in the rural part of Australia than you will be in the city. I would like to say it's very controversial. Yeah, I might be contradicting myself by saying, oh, there are more hospitals here and there are no more hospitals in the rural parts. Why would you get more career progression? The reason is that there are not much people in the rural parts. You might be 2 years qualified and you're the most senior nurse there, because there are not a lot of people. Do you get what I mean? And if you go on Seek, if you go on Indeed, if you go on any of those job apps, you type nurse practitioner, clinical specialist nurses, you might most likely see 5 for a rural area before you even see 1 in Sydney. That's how I know. And of course, I've been there, I've worked there, and I see young people, clinical specialists now, they've only been there for 2 years, and they give them those roles to make them stay, because as you know, the higher you go, the higher your pay is, right? So the thing they keep them is to give them a higher role, give them more responsibility. So if you've been in the nurse for 1-2 years, they just promote you to CNS, promote you to do your nurse practitioner course. Like, you know, the progression there is high, and you're easily going to get promoted. But here in Sydney, yes, you can still get, I mean, not only Sydney, like Brisbane, Victoria, there's so much career progression. However, I like to say that it's very competitive. So you might have one role and maybe 20, 30, 40 nurses applying. So you can imagine how almost impossible it will be to get the role. But that doesn't mean it's not impossible. Please don't get me wrong. I'm just stating how it actually is. And when it comes to nurse practitioner, it's basically mostly bridging the gap for healthcare. So you're more likely going to get a job quicker in the remote areas as a nurse practitioner, as a clinical specialist nurse, because that's where they need your expertise more. But here in the city, we have so many doctors, to be honest, and it's just like very difficult to progress, because the doctors are there. We have trained doctors on training that needs these skills more than us. If you're going for an NP route, like, it's just facts, okay? But that's not to say there's none. There is, but just the spaces are limited. And then, yeah, it's just something you should consider as well. Okay, let me not make this all about career progression, but yeah, another thing you have to consider is how close or proximity to things you value, like church, mosque, school for your children, where to buy things. Like, are you someone that can survive without all those things? Definitely you can survive in the rural parts. That is because sometimes you have to drive 1 hour, 2 hours to get groceries. I would like to say it depends on how rural the place is. Like, some parts are not that rural, so deeper you go, the more difficult it will be to access most things. So yeah, just put that in mind that, okay, like CBD is like the capital, right? How far is it from the central business district? If it's 1 hour away, it's still fine. It's 1 hour away, I wouldn't even consider it rural. 2 hours away, I wouldn't consider it rural. When you say 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, that's where you start having issues, you know, issues with proximity to things, how far it will be to get good school for your children. I mean, I've had people complain that the schools in the remote areas or rural areas are quite limiting. They don't teach as much as it is in the UK or in Nigeria. They don't think their children are getting the proper education, which, I'm gonna be honest, is like almost predictable, because again, accessibility to things like teachers there, the people teaching your children, what qualifications do they have? Are they qualified, or they are just who is available? Okay, and that all those things you have to consider. Churches as well, mosque, you might not get your church around. You have to drive hours, or you might not even get it around. So you have to online churches, or just do something else, or pray at home. But here, like, I have a church just 5 minutes walk from my house. Like, that's how easy it is. I mean, it has its pros and cons, but I'm just telling you so that you can make your own decision. Like, I can go to, I don't know, I've not seen a mosque around here, but there's a church 5 minutes from here, there's another church like Redeem is like few minutes drive from here and all that. So yeah, that's one thing you have to consider when living in the remote areas or if you want to live in the city. Another thing I would like to say is transportation. You people know how long I've been here, right? And I do not have a car, okay? That is how comfortable I am without a car. I mean, like, I like to say that when I was in the UK, I had a car, okay, because I lived outside of the city in the UK and I needed a car. So just imagine, we all know transportation in the UK is, but I bought a car in the UK. But here, like, the transportation is good, but it's not as great as the UK, but I still have survived without a car for years. So this is like telling you that if you live in the city, you can make do without a car. More specifically, Sydney, okay, I don't know for other cities, but I think Melbourne is good and I think Brisbane is good for transportation, but you can survive without a car. And then the transportation, probably in a whole week, I think we're paying like $50 in a week. That's the maximum. Anywhere you go, train, bus, everything is, I think it's capped as 50, but you can pay less, okay? It depends on how much you travel, but the highest you ever pay in a week in Sydney is $50 for any transportation. So you see, it's not bad, because if you consider how much you pay for getting a car, fueling your car, buying petrol for your car, all those extra costs for maintaining a car, you might find out that you spend more if you live in the rural part. But the thing is, in the rural part, you can't survive without a car. Like, some places you go, you will not see a bus. And it's not just about getting a place that's close to your work. If you live there permanently, you would need a car, definitely, 100%, because even if you live close to your work, you can walk to work, but you still need transportation to go around places, like buy things and all. I remember when I was in the rural part, although I lived very close, like 5 minutes, 7 minutes walk to my hospital, but I couldn't go anywhere. I had to rent a car to go around, buy things, and come back. So it's something you need. You need a driving license, you need to buy a car in the rural part of Australia. So that's something you should consider as well. So it's like extra cost. I'd like to say that although, yeah, cost of living is higher in the city, I found out that groceries, like our day-to-day feeding things, are more expensive in the rural part. And this is because of transportation. Like, you get to pay more because they had to transport those things from the city to the rural part. So the price of things are more expensive. So you have to consider that as well. As much as cost of living, yes, is cheaper there, groceries and some other things are more expensive in the rural part. So if you are living in the rural part, if you don't mind making a monthly trip to the city, buy your things there and transport, go back to the rural part, that would be the best. If I live in the rural part, I think that's what I would do. Whenever I travel to the rural part, I always buy my groceries here before going. So yeah, that's something you should consider. I mean, if you're already coming to the city for something else, you might as well just do a trip to the grocery stores in the city and buy your things. I mean, it's fine. Just let me know what you actually do, because I would like to read and learn from you as well. What you just buy it, or do you come to the city? Work-life balance or social life? Are you going to have that more in the rural part, or are you going to have that more in the city? I think this one depends on your personality. What is work-life balance to you might not be work-life balance to me. Some people, work-life balance is coming back from work and having a garden, a large farmland to just sit out and listen to the birds. That's their own work-life balance. However, some people is coming back from work and going to the beach and just sitting, going to the club, going to a large fine dining. That's their own work-life balance. Of course, you wouldn't see all those large fine dinings in the remote areas. You wouldn't see like beaches. I mean, you can, but you're gonna drive far. But Sydney, I can just walk out and I have a beach close to me. I can just walk out and I have a fine dining restaurant. I can walk out and I have like pool, like a lot of things. But these things in the remote area, it's not as accessible as it is here in the city. So you have to factor what exactly is work-life balance, social life for you. Like in the remote area, it might be the only one in a huge farmland or in a very isolated place. You might not have neighbors. You might have, depending on the exact place, but I'm just saying comparison, okay? You would most likely have good social life, see people more, interact more if you live in the city than if you do in a remote area, okay? So that's something you should have to consider. What is very important to you, okay? Another important factor I like to state is that when it comes to accessible healthcare, though I say yes, when you are a registered nurse, you always have a job, you have to consider how accessible the hospital or wherever healthcare service is if you have someone that is sick. So if you have a child that is always sick, or you have a partner that is sick, or you yourself, you're always sick, living in a remote area might not be beneficial for you because you might not have good accessibility to proper healthcare. Okay, you might have to be traveling down to the city to get proper healthcare. Like I said, there are some places that do not have some equipment. Okay, that means you have to travel. So if it's an emergency, you have to weigh your options. Okay, if you're healthy, if you think you don't have children that will be needing healthcare every now and then, fine, you can live in the remote areas or the rural areas. Okay, but that's something you should consider as well. Okay, let's talk about one that is still important: savings. Would you save more in the city or would you save more in the remote areas? I would like to state that this depends on your lifestyle. You can live in the city and save more, okay? If your lifestyle is not the city life, like you can live in a city and not live a city life. You might also live in a remote area and still live a city life, like online shopping, you know, all that, and you might just be spending more or sending money back home frequently or just like extravagant spending. But the truth is, the possibility of you saving in the city is lesser because there's so many temptations. You might just go out to buy only one bread and you see donuts, you see eggs, you see everything you buy. But when you're in the remote areas, you go out and you don't see anything, you bring your money back. But it also depends on your lifestyle and who exactly and your dedication to saving. So I rest my case. But yeah, these are a few advantages, disadvantages, life differences in the remote areas or in the city. I want to say, whatever you choose to do, do it well. If you move to any part, just do it well with your whole heart. And of course, if you move to somewhere you don't like it, you're not a tree. Move, go to another place. Okay, keep moving till you find your sweet spot. I also like to say that there's somewhere in between the city and the remote area, and that is like 1 hour, 2 hours away from the CBD. You see those places around 1 hour, 2 hours? It's not bad. It's not city, but it's not like rural. It's not considered rural area. Okay, it's just away from the bustling cities, which I would tell you that is one of the best. Like you're in between, not too busy, not too crowded. You're just in a laid back suburb, you know, those beautiful suburbs that are away from the busy nature of a city. I think that's good as well. But let me know what you think. Are you team city or team remote? Let me know. I'd like to read from you, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.